You have asked me, when do you take cuttings of bonsai? And I invariably answer, in the early springtime, when the branches have extended and started to get woody. But to be honest, that is true, that's when I do it, but I don't know whether that is the only moment that I can do it. So far I have a standard way of taking my cuttings, and I will show you in a minute exactly what I do. But in short, what I do is I take a well extended branch, I clip sections of it with at least one node, ideally two nodes, just below the node. I dip them in rooting hormone, I plant them in a pot filled with substrate and topped up with vermiculite. Then I put a Ziploc baggie over it and I put it in a semi-shade and I just wait 4 to 6 weeks. And this method works for Trident maple, for Japanese maple, for Arakawa, for the shoyo, for pomegranate, it works for olives. I've seen it work for the taxus, the yew. What else have I done? I have done this on so many different species. Most tree species that you can take cuttings of will work in this manner if you do it in the middle of spring as the branches are starting to stabilize. Now we are in summer. In fact, it is about 20th of July. We are about 4 weeks past the longest day. And normally you would say this is not the right time to take cuttings, but I am going to try for you. I'm going to use the Trident maple tips. I'm going to take Arakawa cuttings. I'm going to take the shoyo cuttings. What else do I have growing well at the moment? And I might... No, I'm not going to take elm cuttings because elm cuttings are so easy. You can just throw them in the dirt and they will grow. Now let's stick with the maples for now. I'm going to take 10 cuttings of each and we'll see in a couple of weeks whether they have rooted or not. So you know next summer, can you do it at the end of summer as well? Or will that fail miserably? I don't know. It's the first try for me. Let's go. Now it is important to take healthy branches. Ideally they have no pests on them and they've grown well this season. And you take sharp scissors. I'm just taking these 2 branches. That should be plenty. Then as you are collecting, make sure that they never dry out. So I'm going to plop these in water. Arakawa. Oh, and of course my Arakawa mixed with lace leaf Japanese maple. Now the main substrate that I use, this is basically pumice with lava, and this is, I think it's zeolite. It's just a standard mixture. I don't actually think this is important. What I think is important is my topping, and that is vermiculite. About a third of the pot is filled with this, and the cuttings actually sit in this material with their cut ends. And I make sure that I water this down completely before I do anything else. Now the rooting hormone that I use is from a brand called Clonex, and it is a sort of a paste. It's a purple paste. I think there's other types as well, but I'm using the purple one. And I'm actually dipping a little bit out of the pot because I don't want to pollute it with my cuttings. This way it just keeps longer. I like to use a bit of wire and just poke holes in the substrate where I'm going to put cuttings. This way I don't wipe off my cutting hormone, or my rooting hormone I should say, from the cuttings. Of course I'm also letting the cuttings sit a little bit with the rooting hormone on it before planting them up, but that's a different matter. Now I don't know how many I can plant here. I doubt I'm going to pot the 30 or 40 up that I hope to get. But we'll see how far I get. And then it comes to the cutting. Normally I try to have 1 pair of leaves, but you can also take 2 if this is a short internode. And I just clip it off. This cut end is of course still fresh. I dip it and I just put it down for a couple of minutes. Then this end here I just cut short. And I remove both leaves if I take 2 nodes. And then I trim it back. And dip it. Of course, for 1 node I don't actually trim it back, I just trim the main stem and then dip it. Now for improved success, one thing I do not use is this herbaceous tip. This will typically start rotting. And if the leaves are very large, what you can do is you just clip the leaves and reduce them to half the size. This way less evaporation happens. Or you can decide, no, I'm just going to clip 1 of the leaves off. In this case, because it's late in the season and I want quick regrowth, I'm just going to leave all the foliage on there. Now I'll just do that with all of them, right? These were quite thin. Those are my homegrown Arakawa mixed with lace leaf. This is my regular Arakawa. You can see how healthy it is. So I'm clipping it short at the node. I'm removing the bottom 2 leaves, dipping it in the hormone and pruning it back at the next node. This is a good, viable, healthy cutting. Do the same thing here. Cut short, clip, clip, dip. And here there is a short internode, and I'll leave this on as well, and I'll just go with this one. So I have a even sized cutting here. Just a tiny little tip. There's a reason why I cut right at the node. On the one hand, I believe that rooting is easier around the node, but more importantly than that, if I leave all of this on, that means that if I ever want to chop really low, because the roots will form here at the end, if I cut then here, there's no buds. That means that the plant will die if I cut low. However, if I do this, and I get my roots around this area, there's 2 nodes. This area is able to produce new buds. So this is good for using as a cutting. This is still very long, so that's not really great, but at least I've got very low buds that at some point I can just cut it down and regrow the base. And now of course it's just a matter of taking these individual cuttings and start pushing them in the little holes they're made. And once that is all done, watering it all down and putting it in a plastic baggie. Now I'm really curious whether these will indeed root, and if they root, how long it will take before I see the first signs of that. Aftercare for these, once they're all covered up, is I just put them in a semi-shaded position, so they'll get an hour or so sunlight in the morning or the afternoon, in my case in the morning, and I just leave them alone. I close the Ziploc baggie and I don't look at them for the first 2 or 3 weeks, and that is when I every once in a while will open up the baggie. I'll remove dead leaves, dead branches. I will leave dead cuttings in place because I don't want to disturb any of them, so I'm very, very gentle when I do open them. And then at some point when I see bud swelling, that is when I will start opening the baggie more. I want the new branches to grow, not in this complete humid environment, because that is what the baggie does, right? It takes care of a very high humidity, which is needed to avoid these young cuttings to desiccate as they're sitting there. This is now all ready. I'm going to water it down and put it in a plastic baggie. Right, we're in the middle of September. Let's have a peek at these cuttings. And as you can tell, it doesn't look all that great. But what you can't tell, but that I could see, there are some roots here at the bottom of the pot. So what we can tell is that a part of these cuttings really will not make it. Some of them are already completely dead, but some of these are starting to root. What I'm now doing is just removing all the loose brown leaves, because they can start to rot, might infect other cuttings. You have to be very gentle, otherwise you might pull cuttings out of the ground. These seem to be mostly Trident maple leaves that I'm pulling out. So I seem to be mostly Trident maple leaves that I'm pulling out, which is interesting because Trident normally roots really well. This has actually come out of the ground, it seems. No wonder it doesn't root. Oh well, let me just clean this up. As mentioned before, I'm not going to open up the root ball. I'm just going to leave it now outside for the rest of fall. And in late winter I might pull them out and see what I do have rooted. We're well into October. We had the first frost last night. Well, frost, just a little sprinkling of white. Time to take the cuttings out of the baggie and just leave them on their own. Quite a few have died. There are still some green leaves though as well. And there are some roots at the bottom of the pot. So some of these have rooted. Which ones? I'm going to find out in a couple of months. Because I don't think I will take these out of the pot until early spring when I see buds swelling. So this is going to be another couple of months of waiting, unless I forget, and then this is the end of the video. Is it? Early spring it is. Let's take a look at what has rooted and what has not. Let's just pull these out and see how many of these have rooted, and then I'll plant them up. Now for potting them up, I'm using this 60-hole container, and yeah, this is I think it's called hardware cloth or something like this. I'm using to fill the drainage holes because they are quite big and all the substrate would just fall through. So I'm just going to cut well, 30, 40 of these, because I don't have more cuttings than that, and I'm just going to fill half the tray halfway up with substrate. And as substrate, just very coarse wood fibers. This is an organic fertilizer high in nitrogen, and I'm adding to this pumice and a little bit of lava and a little bit of zeolite, probably twice as much as the wood. That's 1 with a little root, 2 clearly rooted, 3 well rooted, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, this one is dead. So that's 9 that have rooted and started to sprout again in spring. Now I'm going to pot them up in the tray. But before I do, I like to reduce the length of these young roots, encouraging new roots, side roots, roots at the base. But this is really weak, I'm not going to cut it. This is very happy and healthy. Already aiming at developing a better root system later on. These are young cuttings. They should have enough energy, except for this one, to get over it. They all have little leaves showing. It is early spring. They should do just fine and recover well. And now it's just a matter of planting them in individual pots. And with that, these are all potted up. I'll water them well, and then I'll put them in semi-shade for another week or two, protect them from frost, and in a month or so they go in full sun.